So, what is narrative text? The narrative text is a story with complication or problematic events, and it tries to find the resolution to solve the problems. An important of narrative text is the narrative mode, the set of methods used to communicate the narrative through a process of narration. And then, what is the purpose of narrative text? The purpose of narrative text is to amuse or to entertain the reader with a story. There are 4 generic structures of narrative text. The first is orientation. The second is complication. The third is resolution. And the fourth is reorientation or coda. And here, there are several kinds of narrative text. The first one is fable. What is fable? Fable is a story about animals which behave like humans. And the next is myth. What is myth? It is a story which believed by some people, but the stories cannot be true. And the third is legend. What is legend? It is a simple story which relates on how a place is formed. And the next is about fairy tale. What is fairy tale? It is the story which relates much with magic things. And the last is science fiction. What is science fiction? It is the story which explores the science and the background of part of the whole story. Here are the language features of narrative text. In narrative text, we have to use past tense. And there is the adverb of time, for example, once upon a time, one day. And there is also time conjunction, for example, when, then, suddenly. And then the specific character. The character of the story is specific, not general. For example, Cinderella, Snow White, Alibaba, etc. And in the narrative text, it uses action verbs, a verb that shows an action. And also, it uses a direct speech. It is to make the story lively. And the direct speech uses in present tense. Here are the example of narrative text. Cinderella. The first part of the text is orientation. In orientation, it sets the scene, where and when the story happened, and introduces the participants of the story, who one is involved in the story. And the second part of narrative text is complication. It tells the beginning of the problems which leads to the climax of the main participants. And the third is resolution. In resolution, the problem is resolved either in happy or in sad ending. And then the last is reorientation. This is a closing remark to the story and it's optional. It consists of a moral lesson, advice, or teaching from the writer.
Okay, and next, collaborative discussion. The application that we will use for learning process and collaborative discussion is Google Docs. And next, how to use the Google Doc. Next slide. Okay, how to use Google Doc. First, download Google Doc application in your mobile phone. And second, log in using your Gmail account. Next, look at the question given in Google Doc. And then type your answer briefly. And finally, your answer have been saved automatically. And next. Okay, why Google Doc? Why Google Doc? It is easy to use because we just need to download that application, and also it can access when it is offline. In the first, student can give comment, We still can have a discussion through the Google Doc. You can respond your friend answer, and you can also comment. So we still have interaction between us, although it is not in the classroom. And next.
Okay, students, so we come to the second meeting. So in the first meeting, you have been discussed about narrative text. Let's start from the language features and genre structure. And you also have already got collaborative learning, collaborative discussion through Google Doc. And I do believe that all of you have been actively participate in the Google Doc. So for today, for the second meeting, we are going to have a story retelling. So last meeting, I have already given you a text, narrative text, and you also have been discussed it with your friend. So now I want you to have a story retelling. So story retelling, it means you retell the story that you have been read. So the story itself, what you are going to retell, there are 5 aspects that you are going to retell. Start from the settings. You are going to tell the time and the place where the story happened, and then the characters, who are the people or the animals that act out in the story, and then the problems. What is the problem in the story? Of course, in the story there will be problem, right? And then the events. So you are going to tell the beginning of the story, and then you are going to tell the middle of the story, and you are going to tell the end of the story. And don't forget, you also need to tell the solutions from the problem that you have in the story. So what is the solutions that appeared in the story? So I will call you one by one to stand in front of the class and retell the story that you have been read. And after you retell the story, some of your friends can ask you some questions about the story that you have been retell. So I want you to be ready with your story, and then be ready also for the questions. Okay, everyone, I think that's all for today's class. So thank you very much for your great performance. I hope all of you can, like this, every time we have a class, participate in the class actively. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye, everyone.